The election means one of two things, if this is the way he's going to approach it. Either he loses the election and he goes to prison, or he wins the election, he doesn't go to prison, and is that for life, that he gets to be president? Will we keep having more elections, or no? If every election is a new opportunity for him to go to prison, do you think he allows us to have new elections? I mean, if those are the stakes, if winning the election is his plan to stay out of prison, what happens in that election if and when he does not win it? Does that kind of an election end with a graceful concession to a fair and square re-elected President Biden? I mean, if Trump and his supporters see the stakes as losing and going to prison or winning and being president, and probably president for life, how should we expect that he and the Republican Party and Republican officials in swing states are going to handle the conduct of that election that Trump may very well lose? And because we are prone to forget, we have to say out loud, I mean, that we would be remiss, we would be willfully naive to ask that question as if our politics exists in a vacuum, somewhere outside the rest of our news. As if the politics pages are totally different than the crime pages, right? As if we are not in a moment where far-right politics is coincident with far-right violence, with regular shows of force from paramilitary extreme right groups and with acts of violence by people who are explicitly and admittedly motivated by far-right eliminationist political ideas.
That silence you just heard at the end of that rant was the disillusioned disbelief from even some of Maddow's most ardent defenders. What you just heard takes tortured logic to a whole new level, an unimagined level that no one, just a few years ago, no one would have ever thought even possible for a major cable news outlet to stoop to. It kind of reminds me of that interchange, that embarrassment between Mara Gay of the New York Times and Brian Williams when they tried to do basic math live on air. This was during the 2020 Democratic primaries. You remember this? And they were talking about how much Mike Bloomberg was spending on his campaign. And then this train wreck happened.
But you see it as a possibility if he wants to spend $1 billion beating this guy, he could do it.
Absolutely. Somebody tweeted recently that actually with the money he spent, he could have given every American $1 million.
I've got it. Let's put it up on the screen. When I read it tonight on social media, it kind of all became clear. Bloomberg spent $500 million on ads. U.S. population, 327 million. Don't tell us if you're ahead of us on the math. He could have given each American $1 million and have had lunch money left over. It's an incredible way of putting it.
It's an incredible way of putting it. It's true. It's disturbing. It does suggest, you know, what we're talking about here, which is there's too much money in politics. And it makes it difficult because what we want in...
That's right. Mayor Mike Bloomberg spent $500 million. There are 300 million people in the United States. And so instead of spending that ad money, he could have given each person in the United States $1 million. Now, don't be too hard on them. They're just off by, you know, a couple, $100 trillion. That's all. But that's MSNBC. That's the level of intellectual manure that you get on a 24/7 base with them. But now Rachel Maddow's just made that exchange actually look brilliant by comparison. So according to Maddow, when it comes to Donald Trump, we only have two choices here. Now, I could tell you, someone who taught the laws of logic to students for a number of years, that right away, that is what we call a fallacy of bifurcation. It's also known as the either-or fallacy or the fallacy of false dilemma. It's when a person claims that there are only two mutually exclusive possibilities when in point of fact there are plenty of others. So Rachel, bless her little heart, isn't quite grounding her obnoxious rant in the firmest foundation. And then she puts forward her fake dilemma. Either Trump loses the election and he goes to prison, or he wins the election and somehow from there he cancels all future elections going forward. Yeah, either he loses the election, goes to prison, or he wins and he becomes president for life. Now, gang, stick with me on this. We're going to try to unpack that pathetic blunder of a thought. But first, you know how you can really stick it to Rachel? It's just by clicking on that link below and getting your very own set of these collectible, limited supply Trump cards. Patriots played their anti-globalist Trump card against the left in 2016, and we're getting ready to do it all over again in 2024. So what better way to show your support for Trump's re-election than with these 5 collectible pieces of Trump art? These cards have a limited supply, so don't wait. Only 2,500 sets of these cards are set to be made, and they all come with a certificate of authenticity verifying you own an original set. These make great gifts for any MAGA patriot in your life. And if you buy 2 sets, you also get a bonus gold Trump 2024 card absolutely free. These physical cards are high quality, made in America, and highly collectible. But again, there's only a limited supply, so don't wait. By the time you remember, they'll likely be gone. So whatever you do, click on that link below right now and get your Trump cards today. First and foremost, Trump isn't going to jail. I mean, this is a fantasy of Rachel's on par with her Robert Mueller hoax that she perpetuated on her audience for 2 years. Even if convicted, he is very unlikely to go to prison. Not only is Trump legally required to be protected by Secret Service agents 24/7, but the appeals process during which he would be kept out of jail could take years, ultimately going all the way to the Supreme Court. Legal scholars agree it is highly unlikely Trump would ever see a day in prison. So that obliterates her first either or. But then, what about this notion that Trump would appoint himself president for life? Why? When he can instead do what? He can pardon himself. Now, there is a disagreement as to whether Trump could pardon himself from a Fulton County conviction, but those charges are so patently absurd. I mean, RICO charges? They have little chance of ever getting past the appellate process. But we can push this even further. If what Maddow is saying is true, if Trump could just anoint himself president for life, why didn't he do that in 2020? Why did he spend so much time pressing for recounts and investigations? Why not just do exactly what Maddow claims he's going to do in 2024, 2028 for that matter? If he didn't do it in 2020, what evidence do you have that he's going to do it now? And as Red State points out, he couldn't do it. Elections are state-level affairs. Even red states would go ahead with a presidential contest in 2028. The new president would be sworn in and Trump would be escorted out of office. There's no possible scenario for Trump to appoint himself president for life in any plausible sense, which means that Maddow really has finally lost it. Are you ready to join the resistance? Because I'm leading a group of dedicated, courageous patriots who can lead a spearhead into the heart of the secular globalist establishment. We punished Bud Light and Target, driven CNN and the legacy media to near bankruptcy, forced BlackRock to backtrack on ESG, and now we're seeing our conservative-dominated Supreme Court ending affirmative action and protecting religious liberty. In my Insiders Club, I show you concrete steps to take locally and online that will only keep this mass uprising going until the battle is won. Don't wait. Click the link in my description below and join my Courageous Patriots Insiders Club today.